Hello and welcome to this special edition of 907 Sports, where we're remembering the life and legacy of longtime Iditarod Chief Veterinarian, that is Dr. Stu Nelson, who passed earlier this week according to the Iditarod Trail Committee. He was a force on the trail and was head of that chief veterinary team for nearly 40 years. And when it came to dog care, he was the model figure, not just in the state, but worldwide here. As for nearly 4 decades,
of course, it's a huge loss to our whole community. Stu was a very good friend of mine.
As we'll hear from Dr. Mark Nordman here shortly about his life and legacy. He could always be found from the ceremonial start in downtown Anchorage to the finish line in Nome, and as well as the various checkpoints along the way. And while he was a staple within the Iditarod community, he also did a lot of medical advancements throughout his life across the globe, working with universities and medical professionals to really find the root problem of these issues with dog care. And you will hear from from Mark Nordman, who was a longtime friend and partner of Dr. Stu Nelson, working with him.
Of course, it's a huge loss to our whole community. Stu was a very good friend of mine, not just what he's done in the past, but all the work he's done that'll continue on. It's a huge loss. The amount of research that Stu had worked on, I'd never met such an honest, heartfelt man in my whole life. He really believed in what we do, and the dogs were always his priority, of course, along with his veterinary staff. Yeah, kind of at a loss for words. It's something that I've been with him a long time. He's represented Iditarod so well. We have our ISDVMA, the Nationwide Veterinary Association, that he was very well involved with, and just a likable guy, stubborn in a great way. Great relationship with the communities on the trail and all our friends. As I've seen on Facebook the last hour here, I've never seen quite the outcry of compassion for Stu and his work that he did with us, and of course his family.
Over his nearly 4 decades, I know he did a lot of different things. And, so touching on if you could think of any changes or things that he did that maybe benefited the race, benefited the dogs, some things that he implemented himself, to help steer the race in the right direction over the years that you could think of.
Yeah, I think what Stu left us is all the different research projects that he mentored people over and technicians, and just really stepped up the program itself. It's always amazing to me how these veterinarians and people working on the race, they come up, they give us 2 weeks of their time away from their employment and families because they believed in it. Nobody was more compassionate than Stu Nelson when it came to dog care on the Iditarod Trail. You can't miss him. Big, tall drink of water. I know he will be missed. Stu, being a God-fearing man, he literally, his passion was to make sure that every dog possible get to know him in the best health that we could allow them to. Personal anecdotes, so many fun times, tears when things weren't going well, but always wanting to improve, always looking, so many people, when they get in the same position year after year, they just go about their job and here comes another race. But every year Stu was thinking. We'd talk in the off season, and he always was trying to improve things, and he really did. We've had great head veterinarians before. Stu's been here a long time, and we were like the two guys on the trail. I'll miss him dearly, but I think overall, just we're going to make this better than last year. I think that's the big thing.
So just touching on, his mentorship, or how he got other veterinarians involved in the race and kind of put them on board. If you have anything to touch on him and getting his crews together and getting people caring about this.
Oh, absolutely. Iditarod is kind of the Super Bowl, as you've heard me say, 7th game of the Stanley Cup, but that transfers all over the world. The stuff that Stu brought to the table has been used in races in Norway, even Argentina, all over the States, of course. So I think just getting that crew together, he wanted to have a professional crew it's going to be a tough year for all of us not having him out there. I know the passion is going to continue with the veterinary group that he has. Whoever steps in to take his role, it's surely not only going to be one person. It's a huge role that he has. He's been doing it so long. And yeah, I think overall, just that I could always count on him. Like I've told people we didn't always agree, but we always came up with the right solution in the end.
Generically, how important are the vets and the chief vets to the race and to the health of the sport overall?
Well, we don't have a race without veterinary care. You know, I think and I think we've seen over the years that, you know, I've been working as a race official, of course, for many years. Warren Palfrey is our new race marshal now. We're the enforcers as far as the judging staff, and they're the caregivers. And I think there's a fine line there. The relationship now is so many mushers are looking for that input for the veterinarians because they realize their race can improve and they're constantly learning. And it sounds trite, but it's all about dog care. That's what gets you to know them in a good fashion. And we've got a huge rookie crowd this year. It's going to be hard for me at the rookie meeting trying to explain who Stu Nelson was. I know there'll be lots of stories. And as I mentioned, I have looked online and the comments are coming all over the world. I mean, he was a very special friend and a very special friend of Iditarod's. In 2025, we're rocking and rolling again, and we're going to have a new arch, and there'll be lots of tears under it thinking about Stu.
Meanwhile, longtime Iditarod musher Deedee Jonrowe says she's known Dr. Stu Nelson for about 40 years, dating back to her rookie days, and expanded more on the medical advancements he made when it came to dog care.
Of course, it's a huge...
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be able to, talk about his history with our sled dogs. You know, he was a volunteer vet in the early years when I was a rookie in the 80s, and he was a friend of Dr. Bob Sepps when he was the president of the Iditarod, and then took the race into the next level of professionalism by becoming a staff paid veterinarian year-round and traveled throughout the United States and actually internationally, representing the sport, but also being able to advocate for research projects from the different universities and sites that were programs that were interested in furthering particularly sporting dogs. So there's a lot of nutrition, there's a lot of the sports medicine, there's a lot of things that have come to place in the last 20 some years that Stu's been involved with the race that brought us to another level of professionalism.
Would you say that his impact, goes beyond the Iditarod Trail? Would you describe it as that?
Yes, I definitely would, because his interest was taking it. I know some of the research projects that we've had over the years that were initially his, started with being able to test for we were looking at lungs and pneumonias, and those were a lot of that research was being brought over to people and to pneumonias and lungs and even lung cancer. I know that I'm playing with my black lab in the background here. One of the things that was really interesting was the research that he was able to do with stomach ulcers. And a lot of that ulcer research was done based on what had been there with horse racing, but then we, were able to, because of what Stu's interest was and the people that he was able to get interested in it, we were able to scope all the dogs on the trail several years actually, and be able to identify where these stomach ulcers were, where during the race they were, what the hematocrits. I know that being able to do the blood panels for all our dogs, that was part of a program that Stu had put together. There was just a lot of advances that had been made, and I personally am very grateful for the interest that Stu took, because it was way beyond the couple of months during racing season.
Of course, you've been around a lot of dog people and people that care for dogs, but I mean, just how much did he, care for, dogs, say, just over the years in your experience?
Well, one of the things he did is he came up and he did relief veterinary work in the different clinics, particularly here in the valley. And then he, on volunteer time, came and did kennel inspections and made it wasn't a kind of an enforcement thing. It was a recommendation deal, and this is how your animals look to me, and you might want to do this or that, or perhaps a worming program could be advanced. And in addition to that, he did get us wormers that were provided by Dronset and the different pharmaceuticals, so that all dogs on Iditarod had gone through a worming program 10 days prior to competition. And not only did that help both dogs and everybody be able to see the fitness that gave them, but it also kept from spreading any kind of potential parasite throughout the villages as we traveled across the state of Alaska. So that was a huge advancement.
And for your experience as a musher, just generically, how important are vets, along the race trail, the benefits they provide, and just how important Stu was to the musher's abilities and that sort of thing.
There had been a lot of concern about whether veterinarians were enforcement people or if they were actual academic animal health people that were really contributing to the betterment of our dogs and their performance. And I think Stu really went a long ways towards helping us find a partnership instead of an adversarial role there. And that was his goal. He was kind of a standoffish fella. I mean, I will admit, he didn't have the warm, fuzzy personality, but he had the deep concern and the deep dedication. And I'm personally, I'm shocked. I did not expect to hear this news about him. I know that he's been very good to me over the years, and I've bounced things off of him. We haven't always agreed on everything, but I really valued his professional advice and his insight, because he worked not just with sled dogs, but he was willing to look over and above that to all working dogs. And pet dogs is one thing. You can find a lot of people that are, a lot of veterinarians whose practices are particularly programmed towards pet dogs. But for somebody that's dedicated their professionalism towards working dogs, I'm now working with search and rescue dogs. My search dogs are incredibly important, and they're important to all of the state of Alaska in this particular case, but to the to the United States. And a veterinarian that's deep-seated into that working dog, that dog that we have expectations of partnering with to better something or to create something that we needed in society. They are precious people, and Stu was one of them.
Over your years of racing and being involved in the race in general, I guess, from the start to now, how have you seen that vet care improve, benefit, and how did Stu kind of be a part of that advancements, in pet and dog care over the years?
Well, one of the big things that was Stu's kind of mantra was that no dog, I don't want to say injury, but no dog sickness or anything like that goes rewarded. In other words, research. Anything that went wrong. If we had, a particular year where there was a diarrhea, that was a big problem. We were looking for the pathogens. We were looking for the solutions to that. He was always digging into the next layer of why did this happen? Why did we have, some dogs that had, for instance, the ulcers? Why did we have hematocrits drop? Why did we have these different things happen? Because the only way you can fix something or improve or research for the betterment of is to understand what the weaknesses are that are there. And so, that's what I've really seen. I mean, the mushers today have the advantage of having that kind of, they know the drugs to use for the certain antibiotics and or wraps or way to take care of feet. not just, real serious things, but things that are just daily good care issues with dogs that, Stu was very much an advocate of always looking, is there something more? He had something to do with the weight that he finds acceptable, with the outfits that I say outfits, but the coats and the protection things that we have for our dogs, the wrist wraps and things. Sometimes mushers would come to him and they had seen something in another race or in another venue, and he would be willing to think about it and look at it and see if there was some application for our environment or our particular competition. And so, he would attend other competitions so that he could see things happening in perhaps a different temperature or a different atmosphere, weather conditions wise, that would be applicable, that he could help the mushers and advise the mushers on. So he was he wanted to partner. Like I said, he wasn't the best communicator I've ever known. I think there'd be more than one person would agree with me, but his heart was in the right place and he did it for years.
Thank you so much for tuning into this special edition of 907 Sports as we remember the life and legacy of Dr. Stu Nelson. If you want to read more about the story or other comments that those close to him have made about him, you can head over to our website, alaskasnewssource.com. And the Iditarod says it will share information on a memorial if or when that is made publicly available. Again, thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time.